You're watching The Experience, comic culture and sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere The Experience is all the time.
Everybody, welcome to Minute To Skim It, our cool comic book review show here on The Experience. Usually I have a co-reviewer, but because of, people got the sniffles, so we have one short today. But I am going to have Kyle come on with me, who knows a thing or two of comic books.
Literally like two things.
Here, I'll make myself so I'm in the middle now. Oh no, there's a dollar behind me. All right, so the fun thing about today's show is that there's some of this stuff that both Kyle and I have read, unlike the normal show where we kind of like split it evenly or not evenly. In the case of we usually all want to read the same books, so we can like compete some more style to actually be the person to read certain things. Every once in a while, we read the same thing. There's a lot of stuff we've done both.
That's the advantage to you and I are when I'm reading, we're reading for different shows. I'm reading for my show that's next with Dan.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes you're like, hey, I don't have a co-host. And I'm like, I read all these books. I can totally hop on and talk. But I don't know what you're going to read until late in the afternoon. And like Dan and I put the list together yesterday. So it's this fun kind of, let's see what we both read. Let's see what's different. And you got to read a couple books I wanted to read, but we didn't get PDFs of. So what are you going to do?
Oh, man. Just also a reminder about why we're doing this. We were trying to give you spoiler-free reviews so that you can go right away and message your local comic shop and make sure not to miss things. Because some of these things are probably your LCS didn't order a million of. So you want to be, get your name in sooner rather than later. And if you don't know where your LCS is, like you just move somewhere, you can use comicshoplocator.com and your zip code to find the place that's nearest you. All right, I'm starting with Guilt.
This is one I read too.
All right, I still don't. Maybe you saw it and I'm just a dummy. I don't know what Guilt stands for yet.
Yeah, it's in the book. It's the Guild of something. The L word is lady or ladies. Guild of Intertransdimensional Lady Time Travelers or something. It's all about women who travel through time.
Mm-hmm. So it's rare when you get there's quite a few books this week that they are set in time periods or in like settings that don't feel like they're really pushing the envelope. They're just kind of like trying to get you like, oh, this feels familiar to you, and this feels like a regular situation, and then left field. I love those. So it really is about this young lady here on the front cover that looks the most surprised. She
in the leopard coat.
In the leopard coat, that's right. She gets hired. Well, the book actually starts in a different, we're guessing, time period in which there's a girl in a cab that's going to her own wedding, and then we get a jump. So I think that all these things are tied. And they're going to help us find out soon. But this little girl's not right. This young lady there is actually been sent to go and kind of be like a helpmate. Not really a nurse, but someone that
like a home health specialist.
Yeah, home health. That's right. Home health specialist. To what looks like a very kind of like unwilling lady. She didn't know someone was coming and she doesn't feel like she needs anybody. And so she's kind of like standoffish, but she has this weird quirk where We know that her place is a mess because her neighbor complains about, bugs. But you get in there and it's not nearly as messy as you really think you're gonna see. Just a little bit messy. Normal, like your house probably looks like this if you're not a fastidious person. But the weird quirk is that the older lady there does not want her helper to go into the kitchen, and it's different reasons than you think.
Right. No. So to me, this was like if Gloria Steinem or, when you think about Mary Tyler Moore is a great example, right? Because the character's a journalist in the book. If Mary Tyler Moore got old and couldn't really like clean up after herself, but she's also so incredibly eccentric that she doesn't care to clean up after herself. And so someone comes into the home to help and gets looped into this wild world that the older lady exists in. There's a whole run in this book. There's like a page and a half about fluvogs, which is a type of shoe.
I learned something new.
Well, and ironically, and this is how you can tell how this book shifts through time, right? The younger lady has the fluvogs. She got them at a store with a legally not Kurt Cobain style character.
Yeah.
And this book drops today, which is the anniversary of the death of Kurt Cobain. Or drops tomorrow. Today's the anniversary. So like there's something to this book that it starts in the 70s, and then there's flashbacks to the 90s or the late 80s, and then now, which is apparently 2017, but also time is very fluid, it feels like. And I figured GILT stands for Guild of Independent Lady Transporalists.
Transporalist, oh no.
Yeah.
New words.
Do not alter the past without co-op board approval.
That's true. There's rules in the back of the book. It's just
right.
Like,
this book was super fun.
I think that it feels like it gave me the mood and tone a little bit of like Archive 80, whenever it was. When there's like a little bit, like, I don't know what time period I'm in. I don't know if any of this stuff is real or if they're just counting on me to feel crazy. Who's a ghost? I don't know.
Yeah, no. The other thing I will say about this, and it's true of all Ahoy comics, there are prose stories in the back. Read them; they're great in this issue. Sometimes there's, I'm a little bit more brutal than Miss Jen is. Sometimes those stories are a little iffy. These ones are great.
Yeah, and it's from Ahoy, so I think this is probably one of those titles what I mentioned earlier that probably aren't just going to be like 50 of them sitting on the rack.
Right.
Everyone's ordering a little bit tight because of the paper shortage. So this one I think is worthwhile going, tonight and like messaging your LCS and making sure it ends up on your list, because it feels so different from stuff that's out there, and it appeals to those kind of like, they're going to unwrap a mystery for me as we go. I don't like straightforward things, which is probably why people are saying they don't appreciate, like the movie that came out this last week.
Yeah.
Or it's because it was a very straightforward tale. And so if you're addicted to the twists and turns of normal movie telling, then this will appeal to you for sure.
Absolutely. All right, where are we going next?
The ocean will take us. This is not what I thought I was going to be reading from the title at all. So what's cool about Ocean Will Take Us is, the grand tradition of comic books that have been out, like Fence, and there have been some some ones that are like soccer focused or basketball focused. It's not really the whole tale of the book, but it's also has there's the sport that exists in it. This one has at its center swimming. So if you were a swimmer in high school, then you'll probably recognize, the coach's behavior and the competition of trying to make the team, or being the new kid in a school trying to make the team. But on top of all of this, layered in this is this weird black tendrily goo that appears to be both in the ocean and weirdly in the pool at the school. And then there's another huge twist that is going on for this story that I was like, what in the world?
Yeah, I didn't get to read this one. It's on my list, but it's definitely very interesting, the direction Aftershock chose to take with this book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the main character is a kiddo who is the new kid at school. That he is from Hawaii, and he won state in his high school. So he's moving to this high school thinking it's going to be smooth sailing for him to make the team. I think he already has resigned to the fact that it's going to be tough, just like socially, because high school is a battleground,
right?
Where we are all formed on the fiery crucible of whatever the good quote is from Edge of Tomorrow.
So is this a straight up Aftershock title, or is this something that could be kind of under their size press branding at some point? I mean, is it?
No, it could absolutely. This would definitely appeal to me as an adult very much, but it could also very much be something you could hand to a teenager that they would identify with as like, oh, well, I don't like comic books, but wait, this has high school drama that I'm familiar with.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm. All right. Do you have one that you did that I did not do? You want to grab into?
Sure. Let's go with. Okay, this is. Did you do this one? This is Jim Henson Storytellers.
I did not.
This is Jim Henson Storytellers, Shapeshifters #2. The thing about the Jim Henson Storytellers books that to me are always so fascinating is that most people, when they think Jim Henson's, think the Muppets or Sesame Street or that kind of stuff. But Jim Henson really was obsessed with the narrative form. So you get this book, you get all these storytellers, and they usually take mythology on. So they've done fairies and they've done other things. This one is Shapeshifters. And this is the second one in this volume. This is the story of the Reed people. It feels like a Native American or an indigenous person's story.
Oh.
About a girl who grows who as a child sees the Reed people, who they essentially are the reeds that live by the river that dance in the wind. But she sees the people that are the Reed people. And the result is that she can see them and others can't. So they teach her dances, and she grows up to become a prima ballerina. And it's the story of, how life happens and where she grows up, things change, and her kind of quest to hold on to these dances and these stories from her childhood. And it's all told by this narrator who the only way I have to attach it to is it's the old man from Fraggle Rock. And that the dog is Sprocket from Fraggle Rock.
Aww.
I don't know that that's true, but headcanon accepted. And nowhere is there any allusion to Fraggle Rock, but that's what I want it to be. But he's telling this story to his dog who can talk to him.
Oh.
So he's telling the story of this girl to his dog. And it's a very fun story. It is totally in all ages. Sometimes these are a little iffy on the all ages part. This is a great one that I would feel like is a great kind of bedtime story book. So
do you feel like someone could jump into this one even though it's not a #1 and it'd be just fine?
Yeah, it's a standalone. A lot of these are. The last issue in this one is I'm gonna blank on the kind of the ethnic background of it.
Mm-hmm.
Norse or Scandinavian.
Okay.
Sort of shapeshifter mythology. This one is written by a different author. So this is really an anthology series. This one was written by Darcy Little Badger, who wrote A Snake Falls to Earth and Marvel's Indigenous Voices. So it's written by a person of Native heritage about a Native story.
I love that so much. I think that I haven't read any of those since maybe fairies or dragons. So I should go back and pick them up because they sound like they're kind of my jam. All right, this is an interesting book. This is Rocketeer, The Great Race. It's a cool IDW book. I don't have a lot of history with Rocketeer other than maybe 30 years ago I watched the movie, if it existed 30 years ago. So I like the time period in which it's supposed to be set. I like that it is wartime. I like that it's clear that they have like a competition that's going to be going on with the Nazis. And it's kind of interesting how this all gets set up. I mean, the Rocketeer himself is trying to give up doing rocketeering at the behest of Betty, who wants to just, follow her dreams as a model. So the first half of the book is kind of about that, of the dynamics between the two of them, and the person, I guess, that makes his suit parts. And then it becomes something about like, okay, there's this thing that we need to have done. From what I can tell in the book, I don't think he is telling his beloved that it's the reason why they're doing this. I don't know if it's because it's supposed to be secret because of the government angle. So I don't know. It's set in a wholesome time, and so I don't really like conflict like that. But
yeah, it's so the Rocketeer, right? The character hasn't changed that much since the Golden Age, right? It really hasn't. He's still fighting Nazis.
Yeah.
He always, and if he wasn't, it would be weird.
Probably.
But yeah, this book has a Howard Stark type character. It has the Rocketeer. It has Betty, who you recognize, and all the characters you recognize from Rocketeer books. But it's written in that Stephen Mooney kind of crime noir. You imagine they're gonna talk like this, and kind of have that voice like Humphrey Bogart in a movie. But this one's going a little bit of a different direction. Like the Rocketeer's trying to go straight. And that's not something I ever thought I'd see.
No. I mean, it's kind of cool to see the character try to move past something. But, I mean, is there someone else that could ever take his place? Will there ever be a need not to have him fighting Nazis? I don't think so.
Right.
But the art is really good. The art is like the art that's on the cover there.
Really shout out to Len O'Grady.
Love. All right, I think this is something we both read. And I guess I should have known with an author like Seeley and Campbell team that West of Sundown would be very interesting. Okay, so all you need to understand the pitch for this book is actually on the front. So they actually have two quotes on the front. One is, they cheered and swooned while she spit blood on one of their own back into their faces. That actually happens. The cover is not a lie in this part. It actually happens. And then, a young country still determining its monsters is the pitch of the book. That is literally what's going on here. You have a young America, which you don't really think about in terms of like the classical monsters, vampires, and, the Universal monster set. You don't think about America as ever being part of them. It's always in Europe, right? But this is not the way this is set. This is all America. So I like it very much because there's like, I can't say more than it's very clearly they at least have, from the front cover, they at least have vampires. But do they get into other monsters? And it doesn't feel like just like a rehash of any vampire tale.
Right. No, I can't. I will confirm they get into other monsters. But I want you to think about. Jen has said everything we can say without spoiling anything. Yeah. But I want you to think, if you've seen Hell on Wheels, the AMC show with I'm going to blank on his name now. Who played the lead in that? He was.
That's the one about the banking of the railroad. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
But it was the guy who played. He was in Marvel's Inhumans TV show, and I can't think of his name now. But so you're thinking post Civil War, pre kind of settling of the West, Industrial Revolution,
Mhm.
So, you're looking 1870s, early 1880s in terms of the setting. So, a vampire story set in that time frame.
Mhm. It's gorgeous. It's really cool. I mean, we read a lot of books, Kyle and I, for review and for pleasure. And it felt like there were a lot of really fresh new ideas that were out this week. There are times when you're like going, great, another this era book, or, like there's been, I think every week there is a new vampire book, honestly. And it's really tough to impress me with a new vampire book. And this is very impressive.
Right. For our reading, we actually originally had a zombie book on the list. And then when we got Nottingham, number 6, which we'll talk about later,
Yeah.
we scrapped the zombie book because every week it feels like there's a zombie book too. So, yeah, this is a great setting for a unique story.
Yeah. I loved it. All right. Let's talk about Nottingham since we mentioned it. So this is number 6, but what you need to know is this is the beginning. This is a totally new jump on point for the series. The last story arc at 1 through 5 resolved very well. Everybody knows now who is the person in the mask. That's all cool. Everyone knows it is the Hood. Everyone knows it's Loxley. And the main character for the series has always been the sheriff. He is an actual detective in this, and it starts out the first series, trying to solve a series of serial murders. And I feel like the characters do a good job of kind of fitting in their traditional roles, but playing them from way different angles than we're ever used to seeing. So again, here's another book that takes place in an era that's well tread, or a storyline that's well tread, but doesn't feel like it's treading any of the same stuff.
Well, and it feels like they're taking from, in some ways, Robin Hood Men in Tights, in some ways, The Princess Bride, in some ways, some other kind of Robin Hood adjacent, not a traditional Robin Hood story, but sort of adjacencies, and pulling some of that into this story, but making it all super emo and gritty.
Oh, yeah.
Which I loved. I'm not complaining about that at all. This was super fun. And it takes place, again, historically at a time that's very interesting, where the English and the French are maybe not such great friends.
Nah.
But they're so intertwined as countries that they have to interact. And so this story takes a really interesting bit of that.
Yeah, so the pitch for what's occurring in this book is it starts out where there is a letter that is being delivered that gets intercepted. The letter is very important, and then sets all of our characters on specific paths. It has to do with the royalty. And there's going to be, I believe, a bunch of subterfuge. I don't think it's as straightforward as it seems, which is where we're going to get the detectioning part of the sheriff in.
Right. What I can't figure, and this is just, again, this is me being me, if this is at the start of the 100 Years' War or the start of the War of the Roses. But either way, very interesting time period to set a book about an outlaw.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I feel like I'm doing all the heavy hitters right now.
Well, we're doing all the books that I read too.
That's true. Alice Ever After. What a gorgeous daggum book. Thanks, Dan Panosian, for the writing as well. So cool.
Yeah. So this is Alice in Wonderland has happened, right? And it's the future. It's 15 years later, or however long, 12 years later. A time period has passed since Alice first went to Wonderland. And you find Alice exhibiting what we call in the recovery community drug-seeking behavior. Alice is trying to get back to Wonderland by whatever means necessary. And it really, for the time when this book is set, doesn't reflect well on her social status and her family. And it's kind of how do you, as the person in your family who struggles with those things, interact not only with your family but with society around you, and also when this place exists that you'd much rather be.
Yeah, you've put it. You got the nail on the head with that one. That's a good description for the book. That it really feels like she's gonna like. She hasn't hit quite rock bottom because there's another place for her to go to get there, but she's doing behaviors that don't make any sense for a young lady, and I don't really know what she's trying to get back to 100%, except for to get to Wonderland.
Right. It's so, as someone who has struggled with addiction, and some of this book was very triggering for me. I'm going to be real honest. It's Wonderland to this, for me, felt like that feeling when you're on a high, right? When you're on a trip.
Mm-hmm.
And very much it is a trip to Wonderland, like for her. So it's, I feel like this is, you could set it in today's time and just have it be about the opioid crisis or have it be about something. But because you're framing it of Alice in Wonderland, it gives it this added science fiction fantasy kind of feel that's very refreshing and nice.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I was super triggered by this book. I'll be honest. Yeah. Took me some time.
There's other things to compare it to. It doesn't have to necessarily be addictions like that, because there's other things to be addicted to, like
certainly
the high you feel from being the best at sports.
Certainly
on the stage and killing it.
But I mean, you can see on the cover that's a pill. That's a bottle.
Yeah.
She is going about it a way that is very reflective of actual experiences that actual people will have had.
Mm-hmm. And this book's got a lot of buzz. There's a couple of books that are on the board that we've already talked about today that have got huge buzz. Nottingham's got huge buzz, and West of Sundown has big buzz. So there's a lot of stuff that's out this week that's super.
Also, just throwing this out there. So this book has a really dope J. Scott Campbell cover, and a couple of other really cool variants, but there was a printing error and there's some barcode things off. So if you're looking for one of those covers, try and work with your LCS and just be cool. Like they can't do anything about that, right? That's how the book came, and it's not much they can do.
It's not the only company this week, by the way, that has switch barcodes. The Vault book also has switch codes, and they're gonna.
They posted that they're refunding.
I think they're doing something to make it right.
Yeah, they're doing some refunding or something.
Yeah, it was a nice email to get that they've actually realized that it's going to be an interesting thing for us to have to deal with. All right, AWA Upshot has the Joneses. Don't even try to keep up with them. This is part of their superhero universe, and they just got done with Telepaths, and was there another one that was tying to it recently? This is just the next one in their set of books. And not everything is hunky-dory for this family. The desire to hide the fact that they have abilities is high. It feels like they know for each other. Like I think the whole family has abilities of some sort. So they're working together to try to make not everybody else know. But I know it's going to be more complex than the first issue lets on, because it's more straightforward, just kind of like introducing characters and what they can do and how powerful they are. But there's some pretty big movement in there for powers that look really dangerous. I don't know. What would you do if you had a kid that had giant abilities and you can't put them in their, go to the corner of your room and think about what you did wrong?
Yeah, I like this concept. I can't wait to read this. This wasn't one I got. But it comes out of, what was it, The Resistance?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's a story. That's a book that's been really fun to read. So I'm excited to take a step further and expand that universe a little bit. Thank God I don't have children, because I couldn't imagine what I would do if one of my kids had a superpower.
Well, it turns out that all kids have superpowers. They just look different.
Well, my problem is I'd probably try and co-opt it for my own gain. I know me.
You a helicopter parent? Oh no.
No, I would be like Beethoven's father. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my kid would hate me because I'm like, hey, we can be super famous because of you.
I have a tiny bit of that with my oldest. He wrote a really good manga that he put on Patreon, and it didn't do as well as he thought it would. And his artist couldn't continue. And I said, well, we can find you another artist that can replicate this. He's like, nope, I just think I'm going to let it go. And to me, I'm like going, that's letting go of a superpower because it was really good.
I read it.
Yeah.
I have it still saved.
It's amazing,
on my
right?
Webtoon. It was so good.
Yeah, we had him on the experience. I remember.
Here, Max.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
he
like
left us on a cliffhanger.
it's like I have to tap him all the time. I was like, can you just like write down for me what's going to happen next?
Can you just tell me the outline of the story? Because Jenna needs to know.
Can I just draw it out in stick figures for everyone?
I would still read it.
All right, X-Men Red. Woohoo! Yes. All right, X-Men Red ties into the Hickman storyline. It's right in there's no like time difference for anything that's been going on in those titles. This deals specifically with what was formerly Mars and is now, I think it's called Araco, which is the part, it's an island like Krakoa that they took to Mars, and now Mars is its own alive entity in which there's mutants that live there, but they also have another, I don't even know where this other society came from. If they came from off-world and joined us here, they're also mutants, so they can live there. But this is about them. You know how on Krakoa they have, I think that's called the Silent Council. They have another kind of council up there. So this does the classic, like, lays out who the members are and what their abilities are and what their leanings are politically as far as mutantum goes. And so Storm is definitely central to the book. So that's mostly what the story is about, is like the struggle of power that's there. You can kind of see that on the front cover. And the other big story arc that's been going on is that you have Magneto, who left Krakoa, even though that's his ideal society, right? To have all mutantdom, good guys, bad guys, or whatever living together. That's his ideal society. He, because of being accused of killing the Scarlet Witch in the last big arc, has left or been kicked out of society. It's hard to tell. I think he probably got exiled. And so he's now at Araco and also trying to figure out his way there. So, you know, there's something so cool about them allowing the mutants to just have their thing. You don't need to interact them with any human beings at all. Just let them, they have enough complexity in themselves to be doing this just as their own thing. And then let's get to the Deadpool Bad Blood. Is pretty funny, I have to say. So what's hilarious in this is that it is Liefeld, right? Writing Liefeld stuff. And he pokes fun at himself in this book. There is an actual moment in which Deadpool is fighting a bad guy. It's a pretty powerful one. And he makes a comment that, like, you shouldn't have things like that just on your belt. They should be in pouches. They could be dangerous. As he sets it off, like, you know, it's a bomb.
They had a couple of those in the Deadpool movies where it's people couldn't draw feet or drew too many pouches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he still makes his weird triangle feet, and that's fine. It's like, it wouldn't be Liefeld art if it wasn't that way, right? What would we do if it was
right? At this point, if you took a class and learned to draw feet, we'd all be weirded out by it.
No, we don't want that happening. It's like, okay, I'm gonna make sure I'm not have this mixed up with the other book. I know I always have to look because I'm like, what in the world? Okay, what is the name of this crazy cool creature? I hate it when I can't remember the names of their things. It's a funny name too. It makes it sound like cute. It does. It's a cute name. I'm telling you right now. Oh, Thumper. He calls it Thumper. He has no idea where it came from, and he calls it Thumper because it's beating him on the head. And it appears that it might kill Deadpool, but how many times has he might been killed? I don't know. But this one, I really like this. It's a good romp of fun with Deadpool being Deadpool. He's cool.
All right. So I think we can go one for one now.
All right, cool. Let's do it.
All right. So if you did, I'm going to do this one. This is Apache Delivery Service number 4. This is the end of the run on Apache Delivery Service. I don't know if it's the last issue, but it's certainly the end of an arc. Yeah, this is the last issue of this, at least of this run of Apache Delivery Service. So this ties up all the loose ends that we had, and explains a little bit more about how we find ourselves in the situation we find ourselves in, and why kind of our antagonist's role and our protagonist's role in this book. Like, it is very clear in this issue what sides things are on and what sides people are on, and why they find themselves in the rather precarious situations they find themselves in coming out of issue 3. This book ties it all up in a neat little bow, and if Matt Kent never comes back to it, I don't think he needs to. But I think he likes coming into this sort of realm. This felt to me in a big way like a spiritual successor to Black Badge.
Ooh, okay.
You know, that had a very specific feel, a very specific sort of storytelling style. This felt a lot like that, but set in a little more realistic way. So it was a really good read. It was really interesting book. I wouldn't call it fun, but it was an interesting read. It was an interesting book, and I like what he did with this. Now, if he could just go back to writing Exo Manowar, that'd be great.
Agreed. And I want them to hurry up, dadgummit, and make Black Badge the movie or whatever they're making out of it.
Yeah.
All right. I did not read this one, but I wanted to mention it because I talked to Pat Chan this week. The interview is available to watch. It's called.
Oh, see, I did read it.
Oh, did you? Okay, so you can actually. I got to the point where I just couldn't fit it in. It was my last book, so. So he said to me that this was something that you could read on its own and jump into, and it's a really dense thing. It's like a long read for sure.
Right. It certainly feels like it feels like a trade, but it's not. It's an annual, but kind of with his sort of, I guess, stylistically, I mean, it's 64 pages, so it's double long, but stylistically it felt like a trade, but it's an ongoing maybe or not. But it's you're back with Liesel Van Helsing, and it's a pretty straight ahead Van Helsing story. Like, you know, she's battling the things the Van Helsing's battle, and she is being the badass that, you know, Van Helsing's wind up being. Except in that movie.
Crossover with any other character that doesn't spoil anything?
Kinda. It doesn't spoil anything to say that she runs into Gretel from Hansel and Gretel.
Okay.
But I don't want to talk. I can't talk about who she fights and that kind of stuff without giving away too much. I can't really talk about the plot points are all spoilers. Like,
it's one of those things when you know there's so much that could be spoiled.
Right. It's going to be tough to talk about, and it's a 64-page book. It's to have that many hits in a book. Is part of the reason that I wanted to get Pat on your show yesterday, right? Is I knew that this was coming from him. And it's just set up, punch, set up, punch, set up, punch the whole way through. So everything is pushing the story forward and really driving it. And, you know, and it's something that I've talked about to other people before. The Zenescope books are so much known for what's on the cover, right? People, that's all they know about Zenescope books. Pick this one up and read it on my recommendation. Like, it's so much more than that. There's another book that I read from them this week. We actually read three of their books this week. That is even more in that realm, but this is a much deeper, darker story than you would think, and it's not just about the lady drawn on the cover.
That's right. Just like, despite the cool looking outfits, this really is a very serious, like, they raise up the strong female protagonist in their book. It's not really about like showing skin. It's just having cool outfits.
In that way that Vampirella or Red Sonja or that kind of stuff that comes out from Dynamite does the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's strong female-led story. So,
highly recommend. Try at least one Zenescope book before you kind of like write it off. Okay. That was our... Do we need to have you go now? Do you have something that's...
No, you need to go twice because I only have 4 left.
All right, Stir Girl. This is a Behemoth book. This one is kind of an interesting book. It looks like the style on the inside is very different from the outside. It's very bright neon-y colors. It introduces a bunch of girl characters. As far as I can tell from what I read, the first 4 that are introduced all can link up together, not like the Power Rangers, because that sounds silly, but they link up like telepathically so that they can talk to each other, which is kind of cool. And then I think that they have another whole set of girls. They all have, because they're all these very primary colored characters that all have the same pouty lips and the same eye kind of style. I need to go back and spend time reading it instead of the Minute to Skim It, which doesn't allow for, facial recognition when you have these kind of colorations. But yeah, it's a super thick book. It's almost like a trade. And it is more about, to me, I feel like this book is more about the art than it is about the dialogue, because there are a great many pages in which there's 3 words in random balloons, punch or pow or those kinds of things. So if you're looking for like a deep, long-winded dialogue book, that's not it.
Do you find when you're reading for a review like this, instead of necessarily paying as much attention to the art as you would if you were reading for fun, that you're just going talk bubble to talk bubble to talk bubble so you can get the plot and kind of just skimming the art?
Yeah, that is a detriment of having always reading books now, to be able to like get to the I have to have plot point and be able to explain clearly to someone who might be a potential reader why they may or may not want to pick up a book.
Right.
But also when you have a week like this, when there's like a jillion things that release, that makes it tough.
Right. We had 13 books for our show, 14 if we would have done the Bountiful Garden trade from Mad Cave. Whew. So that's a trade. And it's just, I find myself oftentimes going, well, I've got to do a show in an hour and I've got 3 books left to read. All right, here we go.
Yeah. And I will tell you, like, for example, when I can't read a book, I'll always tell you guys that I've just done a true skim. So you don't be like, gosh, she was baloney in me. I will tell you the truth. Spider-Punk. This is a character I'm not familiar with. I know they were introduced, or I think they were introduced in the Spider-Verse books. Like, I think Spider-Verse 4 maybe was their jump on point.
3 is when they were shadowed, and 4 was their first actual appearance.
Yeah!
This is Jenna's favorite Spider character.
Jenna
I
loves
own everything that they've ever put out, including the pop.
I was really excited for this release.
It's like, these are all my staff members whispering about how much they love this book already. So this is kind of like you don't need to know anything about Spider-Punk to jump in here, honestly. Clearly, I didn't know a lot. Is he British?
She's British.
He's British. And it also introduces another character to go along with them. I feel like they're going to set them up to be like kind of a team book. Cool costume work. It's straight. This one's more straightforward Marvel. So you're looking for something to just like enjoy this week. That's an enjoy book.
All right. So this was a book that I will be honest wasn't for me. This is Star Trek Discovery Adventures in the 32nd Century. I am a Warzer, not a Trekker.
Okay.
I'm also a gator and not a trekker. I like the Star Warsing and the Star Gating and even the battle starring before Star Trek. So this really wasn't for me, but I have seen the show Star Trek Discovery because it has Doug Jones on it,
Oh,
who
yeah.
is one of my favorite
Even
actors. It also has Anthony Rapp, who I'm a big fan of from his run in Rent. So I watched it. This is a direct tie into that show. In the way that IDW does when they do or Dark Horse does, or any of those companies do when they do a Buffy or a Firefly or an Angel or a what have you. It's expanding the universe beyond what the television show can do, and telling stories that can continue on in perpetuity, even if the programming can't. So while it wasn't for me, I understood where it was and what it was coming from. And it was, it was good if you're into the Trekkers.
Oh, yeah. It's not an IDW title, but you talked about Dark Horse. Like, I really enjoyed their, they did a series of books that tie into the Orville, which I always feel like is definitely Star Trek adjacent. So,
see, and Orville was one of those that I liked, but only because my friend Annie is on it. And it's,
it's a very wittily written.
Yeah, it was very funny, but I'm going, I wouldn't watch this if she weren't on it.
Shenanigans.
You like what you like. By the way, it is possible to be a Trekker, Trekkie, and a Star Wars lover all on the same person.
It is. Just not me.
Just not the Kyle. Batman Beyond. Man, I feel like I needed some background. So this is me saying I lean to the Marvel end of comic books when you're in the superhero genres. Batman Beyond, I don't know enough back history to know if this is all brand new stuff that they're doing, if it's introduced brand new characters, if the world in which this is inhabiting is new. But I can tell you that it feels like to me that they're saying that the world that this is in right now is something that he's kind of discovering his place within. That it looks like there's no Bruce anymore. I don't know what happened to Bruce, so maybe that's part of the backstory that I don't understand. And that somebody, probably the main bad guy, if I can understand it, has kind of like set themselves up as like a key leader or something in wherever this world is, and is using the Wayne name as part of a hyphenated part of the business that they're running. So they're capitalizing on the Wayne name, that Wayne doesn't exist anymore. And that's part of the plot points of the book. So I found it to be really great, but I do find myself thinking to myself, like, is it really great, or is it because this is all new material to me with someone that already knows what's going on? Would it be as great? I don't know. So that's me saying that I don't know. It's great for me. I don't know if it'd be great for someone else that knows this character really well.
All right. I go ahead and do one more.
I only have one more, so we're
wait,
good.
your list has 3 more. Oh, you only have 2 more.
Oh, no.
Earth Prime, Batwoman, and Ninjago.
Where's my Ninjago?
It was on your list. Did you not get to Ninjago?
Right. No, it's there. It's there. It's just at the bottom.
Okay, well then I will go. Because I thought you had 4 more and I only had 3 more.
No, I just have the 2. I'll put right here.
Okay.
Go.
So this is Project Superpower's Fractured States. This is another one that is in big letters, not a Kyle book, but very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
The Project Superpowers books have always been very, very good. But you need the back history of the Project Superpowers stories to fully be able to grasp this one. and that might just be going online and reading a synopsis of Project Superpowers, right?
Sure.
I had read some of the early Project Superpowers stuff that Dynamite did, and so I had the backstory, but it's superheroes that aren't as superhero-y as you'd like them to be, kind of like The Boys, kind of like some of the other superhero stuff that Dynamite does. But this has a real strong sort of America is super divided and, kind of reminiscent of current times, except that it's not divided in the way it actually is. It's divided in a much more sinister way. In terms of like straight up the country is falling apart Civil War style.
I don't want to go there.
In like violence wise, like not just ideologies, but like straight up like those people are bad in that state and these people in this state are good. It's really weird, but it's kind of got this jingoistic feel to it that turned me off a little, but it's a super good book. It's Ron Mars and Andy Lanning, who the story is phenomenal. The art is incredible by Emilio Artura. Like, don't let the fact that this wasn't for me detract you from picking up this book because it's killer.
Perfect. That's a good way to say it. All right, and we've got a story about Earth Prime Batwoman, which, again, since I'm not versed in DC and especially not Earth Prime, which sounds like an adjacent universe characters, but I will say it's really cool. Like she's a total BA.
Miss Jen almost cussing. Who
No,
are you?
that's as close as I get. As close as I get. I was going to see if they leave us on a cliffhanger on this one. I forgot the cliff. Oh, this one is a lot. Has a lot. See, this is why I like this book, because I don't like it when books, superhero books specifically, feel like they're just on a hunt for a battle. And then the battle's the primary part of the book, because that does not do it for me. I know it does it for a lot of people. They like the battle, the pretty art of a battle. For me, I like the quiet moments when you get to see the character breathe a little and learn about them, so you care about them at all if they get punched in the face later. So this one does have a lot of her just regular everyday life interspersed with her really having to do her stuff. So this is a good jump on point for someone that just wants to see, hey, would DC be a cool thing for me to try? I want to read a strong female character. This one would be a good one for you.
All right. So, yeah, we each have 2 books left.
Is Project Superpowers like a pulp book?
I would say no, but Dan Wickline is really the expert in pulp. That's kind of his genre that he likes to write in. So I would say stay tuned for the next show with Dan J and I, and we will hit it again. And Dan can in a much clearer way speak to that.
Yeah. For the next show, they pick specific books and get much more deeply into them. So.
Yeah, we cover less books and we crush them all. So I have okay. You hold on to Ninjago.
Oh, you got something. Okay.
Yeah, I've still got. This one is it's Grim Spotlight. It's a Mystere story. It continues on the story it's been continuing on. I don't really want to spend much time on that one because this one, I thought I had 1 book left and I had 2 because Grim Fairy Tales and Zenoscope. This is Belle. This is a Belle book.
Beast Hunter.
Belle War of the Giants. So if you've read the other Belle, Monster Hunter, Belle stories that they've done at Zenoscope, kind of her backstory that she wound up having to kill her mother because she had become a monster and her father and this kind of stuff. And she's trying to find her mother and bring her home. This book is the next step in that quest where she finds herself transported to where she thinks she'll be able to find her mother, only to find a much bigger, more malevolent foe.
Uh-oh.
I was trying to be quick because we don't have a ton of time and you still have Ninjago to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I'd be super spoilery if I didn't.
All right, something I do know about a little bit. This Ninjago, because I have sons. This is Garmadon, which is the bad guy right there. So this goes back and gives you a little bit of their background. I don't know if I would call it an origin story. Maybe it is origin story. But so and then it also jumps forward to where he is kind of like separated from, like his son's not with him. Spoiler, he's like, the relationship is that one of the main good guy characters in Ninjago has this guy as a dad, kind of like a Darth Vader situation. So, but this is really him on his own. And he finds himself kind of interacting with random like villagers that he kind of runs into the woods. And it kind of like draws him into this situation where he notices when he needs his power very much for this first interaction with these guys, that it's not working. So that's something's totally new for Garmadon, because he's a super powerful guy. And they managed to make a book in which it's clearly like Lego minifigures. But the art's good enough that you don't mind that. And you kind of lose yourself in the story. So this one, I recommend it, even if you are not into Legos.
I was that weird guy who went to see Lego Ninjago by himself in his mid to late 20s.
I no lie watched what's the other one that has like the lions and the kind of starts with a C. Why did my brain just stop for the name of it?
I could see it in my head and I can't think of it.
Somebody knows it out there.
Yeah.
That's so dumb. But I loved that one. I watched that probably until it's embarrassingly late. Like when they were done with that series.
It's true. So, all right, that's all I have.
Yeah, that's right. There's a billion trade paperbacks also for people to pay attention to. There was of note. There's a book called Little Monarchs that I picked up that I thought was going to be really cool to read, and I won't, of course, be able to yet. But then there's also like they've got released things like Darth Plagueis' book, which this one is an actual like novel, but it gets released alongside all the other stuff that's tied to the Star Wars universe right now. And
there was a book I didn't get to that I had for review, which was Bountiful Garden from Mad Cave, which I mentioned earlier. But I did want to. There are two books that if your comic book store carried them, you should pick up that are hardcovers. The Annotated Sandman, which is they go page by page through volume 1 of Sandman, and it has all of like Neil Gaiman's notes and all of the artist notes and all of that kind of stuff. But then there's also Death, the deluxe edition hardcover, which is from the pages of Sandman, written by Neil Gaiman, art by Chris Bachalo. That I had to call my LCS and make sure that they ordered both of my books that are big and heavy enough to kill someone. Because I think he told me combined the two books weigh 25 pounds. So.
Oh my gosh. I think the rest of my stuff over here is stuff that I was like, I need to fill up the keys, because there's so many. Like right now, I don't know if everyone sees this, their local comic shops, but trades are selling like hotcakes. So
absolutely
pick them up when you see them. That's the rules. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for a Minute to Skim It. Next week we'll be back to our regular, having Liam with me. Hopefully we won't have anyone with cooties that can't come in, so we'll be able to do that. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Kyle, for being willing to come in and pitch it. I appreciate you so much.
Anytime.
All right, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.